Hello, everyone. I hope you all had a great week. We're here with Emily Richarde and Derrick Lizzotte from Santana Properties team to go over our weekly market update or bi-weekly market update.
All right, so we are looking at some parts of the Miami area as well as some parts of the Boston area. So in Miami, we're looking at zip codes in Brickell, as well as Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, and South Miami. And in those areas, you can see that the inventory was 3,481 this week, which is down 15% from 2019. The median days on market was 95, which is up 15% from 2019. The average sale price was $841, which was up just 4% from last year, so pretty close to last year. The number of sold properties is 724, which is down 24% from last year, which is a considerable amount.
Yeah, so this is, again, one interesting trend. Inventory is down 15%. Days on the market are up 15%. Usually you would think that if the inventory is down, the days on the market are going to be down. It just clearly shows how there was an abundance of inventory in the Miami market. So I think that's why these numbers are reflecting that, and with the slowdown from the coronavirus, lockdown and quarantine. Clearly not as many people are looking at properties, especially, in this area where there's a lot of buildings have restrictions. Even if the town is open, the buildings have restrictions on visitors or people that don't live in the building to go into it. So it makes it more difficult. So it makes sense that the days on the market are up, and also that the sold properties are down. And 4% increase in the price, it's not necessarily that relevant. Because there's multiple factors that could affect that difference. So, cool.
All right, so in Arlington, Cambridge, Medford, Somerville, and Watertown, the inventory is 330, which is down 27% from last year. The median days on market is 21, which is the same as last year. The average sale price is $973, that's up 7%. And the total number of sold properties year to date is 868, which is down 20% from last year.
Yeah, so in Boston, you look at the median days on the market staying at 21. It's very difficult to lower that number, right? Clearly 21 days is nothing when you look at the real estate in general, real estate market in general. The inventory down 27% is a lot. Again, in these areas, inventory was already limited, and then you take 27% off. It's a huge impact. And I think seeing that 20% of less properties sold is a big reflection of that, is that there's a lot of people that would buy, but there's just not enough inventory. There's not enough options for people, right, for what people are actually looking for. So it's very interesting.
Well, it's also very interesting to me. We can see, geographically, the amount of space that these towns take up together is about similar, Miami and Boston. But the inventory difference is exponentially different, over 3,000 compared to 300. That's huge. So it's really intriguing to me, that difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the town of Arlington. The thick dark red line is for this year, 2020, and the thin red line is for last year, 2019. So we're comparing numbers this year to numbers last year. And in the first chart, we can see the number of closings in Arlington, and pretty much it stayed about the same throughout the year compared to last year. But we are starting to see a little bit of a jump in 2019 and not as much in 2020. In terms of active listings, we saw a dip in both towns last week with 43 and 36. And a lot of that probably had to do with Memorial Day being a factor. And now they're both back up.
Yeah. again, it kind of goes along with what's going on in the whole area, but the fact that we have less inventory and it was already such a limited inventory, I think we're starting to see the results in the limited amount of transactions happening.
Mm.
Yeah, and again, think about it. The whole town of Arlington, 41 active listings is absolutely nothing. So, and I think it gets to a point where it's so low that it stopped even affecting the price, because they're just like, if you're a buyer, what you want to buy is just not available. It doesn't mean that you're going to go buy something else, because that's something else that you might compromise in is probably not available either. Does that make sense? So that's why the number of transactions are going down. We're hoping that now with the city's opening, I think this week is pretty much the first official opening, that this is going to increase, right? That more people are going to be putting their houses on the market, and therefore buyers will have more options to pull the trigger on.
Mm-hmm.
Derrick, are you seeing any activities and changes as far as what the traffic and?
The traffic this month compared to last month is actually more than double on our website.
Wow.
There's been a ton of traffic. Social media campaigns have been strong the entire time, but usually those aren't as buyers that are as ready to buy. Just kind of people browsing. So it's tougher to go by that, but the traffic is definitely way up.
Great. All right, so now we're going to cover the Cambridge market.
Yeah. So again, the thick orange line is 2020. The thin line is 2019. We can see that about mid-April, 2019 started taking off in terms of closings, and we are still increasing right now. We're still getting more closings, but not as much as 2019. And then the active listings was really interesting. Last week, we actually had more active listings in 2020 than in 2019. And this week, we don't have as many, but we're very close still. So this is a really interesting chart.
Yeah. I think with Cambridge, the interesting thing that we're saying as far as a trend is that when you look at between Cambridge, Somerville, Arlington, and Medford, what is the most dense town? Cambridge, right? So, and what we've been noticing is we've been having a lot of clients changing their searching criteria and all of a sudden deciding to move to a town that's further out, where they're getting more space, more yard space, more square footage for the same or even a lower price. So, looking at these towns that we've been comparing with, Cambridge is definitely the one that's been affected the most when it comes down to real estate transactions.
Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see how this progresses if the number of listings does start to outpace last year.
Yeah, what I'm seeing is that as far as a trend, and when I talk to the other agents in the area and within our own team, is that buyers are not willing to compromise as much as they were before. Mm-hmm. I think that has to do not only with the inability of people or their fear of, being around other people, but also with the confidence in the economy. I think people are not as confident in the economy, and therefore they're not willing to compromise as much because they're not so certain that the values are going to continue to rise. So they take a pause, or they're only looking to pull the trigger on something that hits all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Also, a lot of people's situation has changed recently too. They were just working downtown, and now maybe they're working from home at this.
Yes.
So
thank you for bringing that up. That's a huge point, right? Like now, Google and I believe Facebook and a few other companies, like massive companies, have gone out public saying that they're not going to have offices anymore, that people are going to be able to, or going to have to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Those are some of the companies did that, right?
Yeah. Twitter.
Yeah.
Offices potentially for good.
Yeah.
So I think their ideas of how and where they're going to live their life is shifting. So this could be really interesting to see how it plays out. So now in Medford, again, the thin line is 2020, the thick line is 2019, and not too much, not as much space as some of the other towns in terms of closings, but still a gap between the years. We also see this dip in the fourth week of May, again, probably because of Memorial Day, and now we're jumping back up in both years to 56, which is our highest number yet this year in Medford, which probably also has something to do with reopening.
Yeah. It's just so interesting. You look at this stat, you can kind of see how the graph really follows a similar pattern, even though the numbers are smaller, which shows like people's habits, right? Like when they're making offers, when they're moving and stuff like that, and what the impact of a holiday. I mean, you see how because of Memorial Day on both years, and probably if you look back other years, you see the last properties are actually going active on the MLS, and then right after you see a lot of people listing their properties for sale.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like with Medford, I mean, it's one of the healthiest numbers. I mean, the closings are not down as much, and the listings are not down as much.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's move on to Somerville. Somerville, we are definitely seeing more of a gap in closings in 2019, the thin line, versus 2020, the thick line. Again, still moving up, but not as steady as last year. And then what has been steady is the number of active listings in Somerville. It's been in the 70s for over a month now and hasn't gone up or down by that much this year. Where last year it was more in the 130s, except for that Memorial Day weekend dip.
Yeah. Again, Somerville, it's interesting. Most likely one of the biggest factors here is that Somerville became very strict on the closing, right? They just reopened for construction now, and they were not allowing open houses and other like real estate activities. And Somerville, I believe, was one of the few towns in Massachusetts where it had an order demanding people to wear masks and having other precautions. So I think that probably was the biggest influencer on this, the activity staying low, and the number of listings being so low compared to the year before.
Which we're seeing that as June progresses, that will change. And so we'll see how it affects the number of active listings, whether it's because of the town being so rigid about being the safety, right, which is a good thing, or whether it's, other factors.
Yeah, the one interesting thing when you look at the gap in the closings is that 70-ish closings, right, that are missing from last year is almost the number of closings that we see on a monthly basis. So we have lost almost 1 month of transactions.
Yeah.
It gives you a sense of the huge impact on the amount of transactions in real estate.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I will say the one interesting thing about Somerville, there are more single-family closings this year and more condo closings this year. Sorry, last year. More single-family closings last year and more condo closings last year. But there are more multifamily closings this year in Somerville than there were last year. And that's the only town where any parameter like that is true.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also has to do with the fact that the inventory levels for multifamilies have increased. And there's a lot of factors to that we talked about before. There were a lot of zoning changes, and there's also a lot of the fear. I mean, the city is being pretty active, or the mayor's office, to push for rent control. So I believe it's a lot of landlords have somewhat of an incentive to put their multifamilies for sale. One, because the economy, right, has had an impact, And then with the fear of rent control, like if you're a seller, if you own a multifamily, it's probably a good time to sell, right? Because you're not so sure that the values are going to continue to increase. So I think that's why we're seeing a lot more multifamily transactions in Somerville.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, last in Boston is Watertown. So we can see that the thin 2019 line kind of takes off this week. And there was a nice increase in 2020, but still not as much as 2019. But again, this is one of those towns where we don't see that huge of a difference like we see in Cambridge and Somerville.
Right. This is 17% is the change in closings for Watertown, and then Somerville and Cambridge were 23%.
Wow.
Yeah. So the gap is less.
But the gap on the active listings is, it's a huge one, because you look at it, it's almost half, right? Which again, it's probably gonna have that gap on the closings is probably gonna continue to widen, because if you have less than half, and looks like right from March to now, it's really where the impact has been, clearly because of the coronavirus, but we haven't seen. So if the listings, the active listings are less today, it's going to affect the closings of 45 to 60 days from now, right? So I think this trend is going to continue to stay like that, and hopefully the active listings are going to pick up, so we don't see a continued drop on the closings for Watertown.
Okay, let's talk about Coconut Grove. In Coconut Grove, there were more closings in the thick 2020 line than in 2019. 2019 is looking like it's starting to catch back up, especially with 2020 kind of leveling out in those areas. So what we decided to do as a result, to see where the differences were, is we split up single family and condos, and I'll show you that in the next chart. Single families are in blue and condos are in yellow. So if we look at the number of active listings, or the inventory, there were more in the thin 2019 lines in both single families and in condos than in the thick 2020 lines. There definitely is more of a difference in the number of condos, 118 versus 79 in May, than in the single families, but still a substantial difference. And
one thing on that, again, it's especially on the condos, because you can see that the numbers there are much bigger, is there's possibly the two things I can see is, one, that a lot of these buildings have restrictions. Right? So when we're talking about active listings, a lot of these buildings won't allow showings. Whereas single family, you could still show it, you could still get into the house. A lot of these buildings won't accept visitors, right? That's probably a big impact. And then there's probably something to do with maybe Park Grove, which is the newest development there. Maybe they had more units listed at that time last year, right? So I think that's where, and when you look at single families, that gap is not that much different. That gap is expected, right? You're only, 12, 13, I don't know, about 20 units less, not 13, 19 units less than last year. So for single families.
Yeah. And then in the closings, we see that it's not just one category, that condos and single families still had both had more closings this year than last year. But again, we had this kind of level out last week and a couple of weeks ago where there were no closings. So we might see 2019 past 2020. We'll just have to watch it.
Yeah, the number of closings, being more or similar doesn't surprise me, because again, you have to look at the amount of inventory, and we did have like an overabundance of inventory.
Right.
So I think that especially in the Grove, where you talk about single family homes and stuff, it is a really desirable area. there's some stats showing that there's lots of people moving from New York and other parts of the country to this area. So that's probably some of the reasons why the closings are staying pretty strong there.
Now for Coral Gables. If we look at the inventory, we can see there was quite a lot more inventory in 2019, the thin line, than we see in 2020. There was more inventory in January than there have been in March, April, and May, which is interesting to note as well. Most of the towns, they still see an increase in inventory, even with the coronavirus, just because of the time of year. But in this one, we're seeing a dip. And also on the closings, we can see that the gap is widening in 2019 versus 2020.
Yeah, no, this is really, really interesting. Again, we're talking about a huge amount of properties, right? Yeah. Like it's not so even though it's less, it's still, it's not affecting the prices so much, and the closings are not down by as much as some other parts. So because we had an overabundance of inventory, which I feel like in Coral Gables, it's becoming more of a healthier market than before. So, but the number of closings going down, I think it's also reflecting that I don't think it's definitely a direct effect of the quarantine, right? And the last people not pulling the trigger.
Mm-hmm. Oops.
Okay. Well, I hope that you guys found this video really informational and helpful. We're here for you. Thank you so much, Emily, for all your hard work and your time. You as well, Derrick. Thanks for all your inputs and helping putting this together. And again, guys, have a great week and let us know if we can help you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.